recorded live from Studio 12A in sunny Phoenix, Arizona. You're listening to the Josh and Friends Podcast.
Hello! Thank you for tuning into the Josh and Friends Podcast. I am your host. My name is Josh. And this week, I'm doing sort of a special episode here. I thought that since we had Johnny on to do the top Beatle albums of all time, that we would have him back to do the top Beatle songs of all time. And if you haven't heard the Beatle special that we did, it was on episode 42. So be sure to check that out. But continuing on the same path, I thought that we'd have John go over his top 3 Beatles songs of all time, with the runner-up, of course, and discuss why these songs in particular were his personal favorites. Now, with this special, I decided to have only John provide his list, partially because I didn't want my head to explode trying to pick out my top 3 songs. I'm serious, it probably would have made my head literally explode. And the county corner, they really don't need extra work. They have enough on their plate as it is. Anyway, I digress. So, without further ado, please enjoy this special bonus episode of John and his mini Beatles countdown. So, John, what are your favorites? What did you have?
My first alternate, I had Ticket to Ride, just because
great
it was
song.
Probably the first song that I remember that just had everybody doing something different. You had Ringo's amazing drum beat, which we covered.
Oh, I love that.
And and John's voice was, he had that really raspy kind of twist and shout voice in there. And
that's always been one of my dad's favorite songs too, Ticket to Ride.
And he's like, she would never be free. And he does that little, oh, she's got to ride. Love that.
Yes, that is great.
Clean guitar riffs, Ringo's rolling toms in there, and that's pretty sweet.
That is a great Ringo.
I think it would easily fit on a Rubber Soul, personally.
Yeah, you're right. Instead of I was reading about that. Like I kept reading every single review that I'd read, it doesn't really go because this album's so kind of like a serious all the songs are very very sophisticated, and then there's okay, well, here we go, we're going Ringo,
just pick one and slap it on. I'm sure they had plenty of those,
right? Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So
they could have easily put that on the previous album, I think, but it fit better. But they're like, hey, this is about movies, this is a movie soundtrack, let's put it on.
Right. What goes on? That's so funny, man. Yeah, because I love that song when it's on random. You don't notice it, right? At least I don't. You don't really notice that song when it's on random, because if you have your old 6-disc changer or whatever it was, if you have
10 seconds between songs or more,
and you're going. Yeah, no. If you hear that with a Help song or a Beatles for Sale or Hard Day's Night or any of those early Beatles albums, it mixes fine. It's perfectly fine. In those, but if you hear it with Rubber Soul, you're okay, that's kind of odd that it's mixed in with Girl and In My Life, right. And it's all these songs. It's that is funny. I never really thought about that. I honestly never thought about that until I was rereading all these people's reviews on that album, and then it was kind of oh wow, I never really noticed that. So that's interesting. What did you have for your number 3?
3, Please Me.
Ooh.
I think it should have been their biggest early hit. I mean, in my opinion, it was their best early song. It was their song.
Yeah.
Powerful drums, guitar fills, their descending harmonies.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a good song. I like that song.
Singing was real strong. I mean, you look at Love Me Do. Paul was nervous. It was just the singing was.
Yeah, you could tell that he's gonna.
But then, they're just going all out on this song, and the song starts back up, and it doesn't have a solo or anything, but I didn't miss it.
I didn't notice that. Yeah, you're right. I didn't notice it.
There's songs that bridges and choruses, and then it changes up, tempo changes, the you know, it changes from a major to minor and back again, and then there's no solo, and you're like, I had no idea.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's cool. Like, it's funny because that song kind of like flies under the radar for me. I mean, obviously it's like a big song, but yeah, wow.
And it was basically them not mocking, but trying to clone a Roy Orbison style.
Yeah. Please leave me out. Yeah, and it has like some of their harmonica and stuff in there.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly wasn't a huge fan of it for the longest time.
Yeah.
And the more I listened to it, I was like, out of these early songs, especially if you're listening to just early music.
Oh, I can't stress that enough.
2 albums.
I remember, that's originally how I got into. I started listening to oldies radio, but then I would start. I got that book. I pulled it out the other day. It's that. Remember that old Rolling Stone album guide? So I had 2 of them, but one of them was like hilarious to read because it literally had. They didn't give 2 shits about pissing off bands, and in all honesty, they probably wanted to piss off groups because they didn't give a shit back in the day, right? I was looking up we're talking the first page. It has ABBA and AC/DC. ABBA kind of gets like, it kind of get a little bit of love, like 2, 3-star albums and stuff like that. So it goes up to 5-star albums, right? And then it goes to and then it goes down to 1 star, but then it goes even lower and it goes to Square. And the Square is like basically worthless. You should have never bought it. Should have never ever been made. Something like that. And the next group is AC/DC, and they have because they only had 3 albums at the point. They had Square, Square, Square.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, that is hilarious. Well, partly because it's fucking completely wrong. Like AC/DC is fucking amazing, but but it's just so funny because how can you not laugh at that? It's so funny that they didn't give a shit.
They have write-ups on why it was a square too.
Yeah, a little bit, not too much, but it's funny. It's hilarious. And they do that, and obviously they have 5-star albums where they really revere some albums throughout this book. But the ones that they literally don't give a shit about, it's so funny. I
don't like these guys.
Yeah, it's so funny to me. I'm like, oh, that is so refreshing and awesome. You never read shit like that anymore. People don't piss off fucking bands. People are walking on eggshells and trying to be nice, and everyone loves everything now, and I'm like, okay, that's I get it, but we're in
that or the bad comments are so bad you just don't want to hang around.
Oh yeah, then you have the trolls. Yeah, the trolls are a different story. Yeah, I guess this is trolling before there were trolls.
Yeah.
But they were actual legit writers, they're reviewing albums and shit like that. Yeah, so they'd have a little tiny write up on what they thought of that, and they're real. Some of them are really short. They give Pet Sounds I think 2.5 or 3 stars or something like that. I was like, wow, it's so crazy how these albums are look back differently than they were back then. Because again, this is 1979 or something like that. And
bizarre, man. Must have been an old guy who was ready to retire or something.
Yeah, totally. And have you heard that? I don't know if you're at all into the Beach Boys. I went back and started listening to the Beach Boys and stuff like that.
The first concert I ever saw was Beach Boys at Puyallup Fair.
Oh, really? That's awesome. Yeah. That's so cool. No, but there's a song or an album called Sunflower. It came out 1970. Dude, it's so good. It's one of their best albums, and nobody knows anything about it. It has that track by Dennis Wilson. If you even just type in Sunflower full album, it's posted everywhere on YouTube and stuff like that. But it has that song by Dennis Wilson, who didn't write a lot of songs with the Beach Boys, but when he wrote or sang some songs with the Beach Boys, they're amazing. So I made a kind of a playlist of the Beach Boys. You could look at it if you want. I kind of pick out some of the top songs, or my opinion of the Beach Boys. Yeah. I think I put that full album on there. That's how good it is. And it had that song. So remember when Jesse and the Rippers did Forever?
Yeah.
If everything blah blah da 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 forever. I don't know the words, but anyway, that's Dennis Wilson singing that song, and super good.
Really?
Yeah, it's super good. He has a raspy kind of voice and stuff like that. But anyway, definitely check that album out. But I'm sorry. Wow, we got on a really sidetracked thing here. What was your? What are we on? We're on your third?
Number 2.
Oh, number 2. Okay.
So A Day in the Life.
Oh,
just
so good.
The haunting vocals by John. the hella dark intro lyrics just kind of cracked me up. It's like this famous London socialite guy, he was the heir to the Guinness fortune, died in a car crash. And I mean, this whole song was basically written from a newspaper that I don't even know if it was just one day's worth of articles and he went and wrote this song or something.
Yeah.
But I mean, John sees the photo in the paper, and then in the lyrics he says, "I just had to laugh. I saw the photograph." Like, so he sees the picture of this. I mean, maybe the dude is a real dick.
It is so weird too, because like if it's funny because like I notice a lot of the time you read the lyrics and you like read them, and they're way different if you read them and you hear him singing, because John had a way of like when he would sing songs, his voice is so almost like, for lack of a better adjective, he is haunting. Like when he sings like his songs, and he has like a way of singing these songs where it's like, wow, sounds amazing. But then it's like, but then if you just read the words, like the lyrics, it is like just totally like it sounds completely different. Like
and then the rest of the song's about a movie he saw and some potholes in the road. You're like, okay.
Or
so
10,000.
Basically went from the front page to the last page.
Right. Yeah. And then you have Paul coming in and like, you know, woke up,
it's like this weird peppy too. It doesn't fit at all, but they had that psychotic, intense orchestra build up.
Yeah.
And
then the alarm clock changes the.
And to hear it without that, it's just like this weird counting, the echo.
Totally.
Echo in it.
Totally.
Then Ringo's drums in that are just the shit. The fills, the piano backing in there. It's like this little melody that plays in the background that you wouldn't hear unless you've listened to it 100 times.
That's one of those songs that, like, if I heard that, because that's the ending track on Sgt. Pepper until like. I'm like, oh fucking, what the fuck? No, but that song where it ends with all those pianos, like the build up and like the end, like that. Man, they knew how to end some of these albums, man.
That chord was a real big deal to me, because when I first started getting in the Beatles, I watched that Imagine documentary. Did you ever see that?
Yeah. One? Yes, I saw that in the theater.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's cool.
With my buddy Brad.
Oh, nice.
I don't know whatever happened to that guy?
Yeah, so that part when it's talking about when John got murdered, and it shows his glasses falling down the ground, and it plays that chord. I was like, I can't not think about that. Like, so I associate that like.
That was so big. I remember like, because it was all those like big moments that were coming out. So like, for me it was and it was funny because like everything was getting back into the resurgence of the band, the Beatles, and like it was like the Monkees. And then my buddy Brad, his mom had some of those U.S. Beatles albums, right?
Oh, wow.
And we'd thumb through those, and we're like, well, let's listen to some of these, man. Like, this is kind of cool. Like, so we were listening to these. We're like, whoa, your mom like literally had these like back in the '60s. Like, it's kind of cool. So like, we'd listen to these albums, and then we started buying, like, I think we bought the White Album, and we were just like listening to these albums like for the first time. It was like really cool. But like, I remember when he gave me the Sgt. Pepper album, we were at the skating rink. I was like opening it up. I was like, well, and he put it in like a coffee pot with like a bunch of dirt filled in it because he was like trying to trick me. And then it was like just a tape sitting in like sand. I was like, oh, and I was like, okay, cool. No, but it's an obscure memory. But anyway, so when we saw the Monkees, and then when that movie Imagine came out, because that came out in like '88 or something. 88, I think
so.
So like, I'd really gotten like entrenched in the Beatles, and then when that came out, I was like, oh, I've fucking seen this in the theater. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And then I got really into John Lennon and stuff like that. But then I started like reading books and stuff, and I was like, this guy's like a kind of not a good person. But he was like fucked up, man. Like it's just, common psychology. Like, if you're fucked up from a young age, you're gonna have problems. You know what I mean? You're just it's just how it works. It's human nature. But that guy struggled so hard to like, to be good, and he channeled it with making music and meeting Paul, and like Paul was completely 100% the opposite. Paul was like, I didn't even understand. He's like, I didn't even understand like how he even had a bad childhood, because it was so foreign to me. Like he had like the greatest childhood.
Yeah, totally.
So it's
like
interesting.
Yeah, and later on he was like, John was like hooked on smack, and
Yeah, and
going through heroin,
Yeah, and when he went when he started hanging out with what did they call that crew? Like not the Hollywood vampires, but close. It was,
it was something like that.
It was
I think you're right.
Well,
Nilsson
Nilsson and that group up, Mickey Dolenz
Lost
and
Weekend guys.
Yeah, all those guys. They just getting hammered at like little dive bars and shit and like that,
and cause all kinds of trouble.
And then he's like, getting like May Pang and shit, like all this like weird shit, and like
with Ringo's, not Ringo, but Yoko's permission.
yeah, right. It's like go have your fun. I'm like, okay, this is weird. This is
and he
weird
did.
Shit.
He went and had his fun. He came back and
he goes, well, yep, and then got that out of my system.
And then right as he's freaking, seems like he's got his life straightened out and he's finally found some peace. And that piece of shit murdered him. You're like, come on, dude. That's just like
so
when his
disgusting.
mom died. They just got reunited and were having a decent relationship after she abandoned him.
It's so weird, man. And like
she got killed by an off-duty cop.
And he was 40. Isn't that weird to think about? Like we're like way older than
Yeah.
And he did all that shit in his life. Think about all the stuff that he did. I mean, like, it's crazy. Like the fact that like he had a whole full and I was talking about this, I think it was last night. I was talking about this with people that know nothing about the Beatles or anything like that.
Yeah.
But his solo stuff, there's some really good songs, but they're recorded like shit. Like they sound like garbage to me. And that's so and part of that is it's weird because Phil Spector, he created the Wall of Sound, which, by the way, the Wall of Sound was a cool technique to use with when he uses all the different people, like, and the way he recorded those songs. But even those songs, they don't sound great. Like the actual sound, like sonically, they don't sound good. Some of his recordings sound okay, but like, cause he did the early Lennon albums, like, and they sound like shit.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wait a minute, like that's so shitty because like there's some super good songs that he did and they don't sound good. To me, it's hard to listen to music that isn't recorded well. And it's almost kind of like he just shit them out. And I'm like, oh man, that's where he would need like Paul and what's his name? The producer, George Martin. Yeah. Because like they wouldn't put up with that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. That's just my opinion.
I think he just cut ties so much and just fell in with this like group of
yes men,
vampires.
Yep.
And didn't challenge him or didn't, oh man, I can't imagine what his solo music would have been like had it been touched by anyone.
I think and when reading about like that Paul story that I threw in there, I love that story, by the way. We're like, we're just trying to relax. Mm-hmm. And then like the phone rings and they're like, and back in the day, it's like a loud phone, like probably just that they pulled next to the pool and like, fucking Paul, piece. And they're like, he's like, I have some songs we need to get in the studio. How did I know it was you? I
got a whole album. We're going to do it today.
But yeah, like the other Beatles, they don't even deny that. They're like, it literally Paul is credited for like the amount of music that we put out, that we pumped out constantly. That's Paul. And you can tell, like that guy's like, he just has that machine. He's the workhorse. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's just always, that guy's never stopping. It's crazy.
It's crazy. I can't even do like it's like my whole life I've done less than what Paul has done in 1 year, I think. Up to this point in my life, I've probably done less than Paul's done in a year. Obviously I'm not a musician, but compare apples to apples.
Yeah. It's so funny, man. Like, and he's like, and he's just all cool. Like, he's like, did you see that documentary with, Sound City? Did you see that?
No.
Oh, John, you got to write that down. So,
I haven't seen anything.
Oh God. There's this documentary that, what's his name did? Dave Grohl. And Dave Grohl did this documentary about this recording studio down in LA. And
I remember hearing about
it's like this. It's this dumpy ass. Like it was just known in town. It's like, Sound City. Jesus Christ, you don't want to drop anything in that fucking place. Like, you shit. So, but some of the greatest music ever made was at this place, and basically they build up to the board, and there's this famous board that they had there. And then they found out just after years of, people just not fucking making music like they used to, and everything being, digital instead of analog. Dave Grohl, he's like, I'm going to rescue this board. I'm buying this. So he like bought it. And then he put it in his like own studio. And now he has the old famous board that like all these like just insane albums, like, Tom Petty's, what's that famous, Damn the Torpedoes, Rumors. I mean, we're talking like some of the greatest albums literally ever made, right? And he goes, think about that. All these fucking albums came through this board. Like, that's crazy, right? So, yeah, he goes, there's no way I could just let this board.
Man.
And I think he said something like, it should almost be in the Smithsonian, but that's almost criminal too, because it should still be in use. I want to use this. I'm like, I love Dave Grohl.
Does he use it?
Yeah, he uses it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so,
man.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's funny because like I love Dave Grohl. I obviously love their early stuff, but like they'll put out like some stuff now. And I'm like, it's all right. Like it's all right. I mean, I don't hate it. Like it's, but I love Dave Grohl. I love his attitude. I love that he's like almost like single-handedly trying to save rock. You know what I mean? Like,
I've always really liked him.
He's just always he's always super nice, and except for that one doc he did about the Foo Fighters. Did you ever see the one doc he did about the Foo Fighters? Ugh.
No.
It's kind of hard to watch because like he was talking about. I'm sorry, I'm going way off on a tangent here, but
it's fine.
But anyway, no. So he did this one thing where the first album I remember listening with you down in the basement, which is super cool. It's like almost like a kind of like an indie album, like that he did by himself, kind of like because he idolized.
Oh, the
Paul.
very first Foo Fighters.
Yeah, because like he did the whole thing by himself, kind of like Paul did with his first album.
Yeah.
And then they were recording the second album, and he had this drummer, and he was like, I was listening to it, and he's like, you know what? Some of these drum tracks are kind of like weak, and he secretly like recorded the whole thing, like again himself.
I did hear that.
And then he told the fucking guy, and he's like, what? You did what? Like, and it's so bad. It's like I almost like want to like just. I almost want to curl up in the corner and like hide my eyes when he's telling that story. It's so bad. I'm like, oh my fucking God. And the guy's reaction, I'm like, oh my fucking God, this is so bad. Like, can you imagine? Oh, it's so bad. But,
dang, man.
But
yeah. Did he stick around?
No, he didn't. No, but it's one of those things where it's like, look, man, that's his band. And it's his name is the fucking name on the band, and he's one of the best drummers there is. So so
he's gonna know. It's his sound, and he knows drums. That's for sure.
Exactly. So yeah. Wait, did you say your number one pick?
No, we were building up to that in a roundabout way, I think.
What's your number one?
All right, Nowhere Man.
Oh, Nowhere Man. Oh. Yeah. Another great layered vocal song. I'm glad we got to talk about the vocal. No, I hear so many people talk about the Beatles and everything, and I don't hear them give love like we gave love to the backing vocals on our episode here.
It's probably my favorite.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, it's like it makes any song of theirs that has it pulls me in.
La la la. Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, it's so good.
La la la.
Oh, it's so good. I think I'm gonna probably like listen to Rubber Soul here in a little bit because like I love all the backing vocals on these songs just as much as the actual like singing on the songs, maybe more.
I know. So yeah, I think the reason I love Nowhere Man so much is I always kind of felt like a nowhere man. I'm always just kind of one of those people that can fit in anywhere, but I'm not nowhere. Not anywhere, but I'm also everywhere. Yeah. I sit in my nowhere land making all my nowhere plans. And so basically I'm sitting around daydreaming, but never, putting those plans into action. Yeah. Yeah. So
I remember hearing that song. I don't know if it was the first time I heard that song, but because I definitely didn't hear Revolver. I heard Sgt. Pepper and I think I started buying CDs in like 1988. Because I had a tape of Sgt. Pepper, and then when I bought a CD for the first time, I think it was 88. And I remember because I bought my first.
Same here.
Yeah, because I think I bought a tape off some kid for like $5. It was Licensed to Ill in like 86.
That was my first CD purchase.
That's awesome. But anyway, that the first tape that I had of the Beatles was the Sgt. Pepper. And the first CD was Revolver, and I think I got that circa 88, and the reason why I'm stressing this is because I was at the radio station with my dad when he was at KGRG.
Yeah.
And when he was doing a show or recording in one room, I could go in the other room and just fuck around, and I just pull out albums. Wow. And they had everything. So I was just, and I would just pull out these albums and I'd start playing them on like the record players. And one of them was Rubber Soul. And I remember I heard the first song. I liked the first song, Drive My Car. And then when it came on to
times, great oldies.
Yeah.
That's what it always reminds me of.
Yeah. But when it came out to, when the next song came on, Nowhere Man, I was like, whoa, this is awesome. Like, this is amazing. And I was like, oh, I love this song so much. And I just remember hearing that song and just like loving that song specifically so much. That was the first song that I heard when I was like, wow, that's so different sounding. It's so amazing. So
one of the old guitar solo in there always just sounded like so clean, but it also sounded like really full bodied. And I recently found out it was because John and George both played the solo in unison. So it's coming out of two guitars at once.
That's crazy.
I was like, oh, okay.
Wow, that's cool. Awesome.
So they're playing the same thing at the same time.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I didn't know. It's like, you couldn't tell.
Yeah, because like back then they had their 4 tracks, right? So like they would, it's so crazy. God.
And then Ringo's got his little drum roll fills in there in between chorus and the verse. And I was listening to it, I was like, man, that little drum roll fill that he's doing, it's just real quiet and subtle. And I was like, sounds so familiar.
Oh, it's so cool.
I finally figured it out. It was they did this instrumental song on the Anthology 1. Well, it wasn't on Anthology 1. They didn't put it on there. It was on their Decca audition tape, I believe.
Yeah.
Called Cry for a Shadow. Remember that one?
Yep.
Yeah. And I don't know if that was who did that song, but they either covered it or did it themselves. So I'm pretty sure it was a cover. But he did almost the exact same drum roll sound that was on Nowhere Man. I was like, whoa.
Wow.
And I just realized that today when I was re-listening to Nowhere Man this morning.
Oh, that's crazy. You know what's funny is I forgot to like even mention I told you I was gonna talk about that one guy's selections of songs that he would have replaced on the White Album. And his choices, I told you my choices, but his choices were to take off Revolution Number 9 and Good Night. And that's weird that I immediately thought of those 2 songs before he even told me, like before he even said it, like on the on his video.
Those are my 2.
And then he said, "This is really cool." This because like this, I didn't even think about this, like putting this in there, but it would have been awesome. Not Guilty.
Oh yeah.
Right? Because that was recorded right like around the same time, but it didn't make the cut. And I was like, wait a minute, that didn't make the cut, but like that avant-garde shit pile of crap that made the album. I'm like, that's so shitty. Did you ever hear when he later put that on like his solo album from 1979? He did like his own kind of like solo version of that song.
No, I never heard the solo version.
Yeah, it's okay. I think I kind of like the Anthology one better, but it's still good. When
I heard that on Anthology, I'm like, why haven't I heard this song?
Right. I know. I'm like, because it's like a fully like produced good song. You're like, it's so weird. It's just as good as any of the other fucking songs on,
It's just Paul was notorious for not wanting anything to do with George there towards that time.
So
he wouldn't even work on any of his stuff.
So like, crazy. So weird.
Paul, John, and Ringo would be there doing their song, his song, and it would come out amazing.
Yeah, but like if at the very end, like he brings in those 2 songs, you're like, holy shit! Like how you can't even deny that at that point. Like you're like, oh my god, like wow. But yeah, so God, maybe we'll have to do a podcast of like making 1 disc of the White Album. I love that you said like,
dude, that would be awesome.
When you said that, like that was so funny to me. You're like, because you can cut. It's hard because there's good songs on both sides of those albums, but there's some weak songs in there. There's some weak songs. So
or they just don't fit, or they don't match. It'd be just like our mixtape making days where we would start off with a big song and then we'd calm it back down a little bit.
Exactly.
You don't want to. What was it? High Fidelity's like, you don't want to blow your load right off the bat.
Yeah.
That might be a fun exercise. I'm gonna start thinking about that.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Like there's
Even
so
if
many
we don't do it, I'll probably give you my list at some
there's
point.
so many ways you can go with this. This is why there's so many podcasts of the Beatles, because there's everyone loves the Beatles, first off. But
Yeah.
there's such an interesting group of guys. Like where you could even do what are the best solo songs by the Beatles. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
did you ever see that movie Boyhood?
Yeah.
Didn't you love that part where like the guy's like the dad's like he made an album called The Black Album, like had the best of like the Beatles from the 70s. And I'm like, that is so cool. I'm like, I immediately looked up, I went out on the internet. I was like, oh my God, there has to be like someone had to have went on and made The Black Album as like some kind of bootleg. And there were people that like literally made like a Black Album bootleg. And like the kids like looking through it. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to see it. Like, I want to lean over and look at like what fucking songs he put on there. But yeah, I love that. I love that they did that, the Black Album.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of material to work with.
Yeah. This is endless.
Trying to come up with something interesting.
And I've told Lee this, like I always bounce ideas off Lee, because when I originally like thought about this, I'm like, I go, yeah, I want to do a podcast, but like this isn't my podcast. Like I want like everybody to like be a part of this, podcast. You know what I mean? Like I want to start it off with like, introducing everybody, kind of like, this is how we met and blah, blah. And like, these are some more funny stories and whatever. But then like, talk about like interesting, cool topics like this. And each person has like knowledge in different areas, which is kind of fun to me. Like you know, you can talk about like the Beatles, or you could talk about like blah, blah, blah. And
That's why I was like, I very much enjoyed the Seattle grunge era, just listening to some of the stuff from Lee, you, and Ethan. I was like, wow, man.
Yeah, it's so cool. Like it's so fun. Like to go back, like, and
some of that we didn't have time to digest that stuff when we were living in it.
I know.
To hear their takes this many years later was after they've had time to digest it and reflect on it and learn a little bit more about it.
Totally.
Like, I learned a lot just from looking up stuff for this episode.
Oh, I know.
I mean, how much other stuff don't I know?
I know. It's wild. Yeah, but it's fun. It's like it's so fun to like just we're like mixing in our personal opinions with our personal experiences with our knowledge and putting it all together. It's funny that we kind of like, because we didn't really discuss any of this beforehand, but we listened to these albums back in the day. But like it's funny like that we kind of like felt the same way about the White Album and Let It Be, because like I watch all these reviews about Let It Be and I'm like dumbfounded. Like people are like, this is like one of the best albums like they ever did, and I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like it's a fucking mess.
There's a reason it got thrown on the shelf by the Beatles.
And I think we kind of explained our opinions pretty well on that part, because we were talking about how for any other group at that time, it would have been the greatest album ever. Like, but this was the Beatles we're talking about, and we're comparing it to, the last, whatever amount of albums they put out previously. So compared to those albums, it's not up to par. And I love, like when I heard Let It Be Naked, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This sounds so good. I can't believe how good this sounds. And it was like, not only was it cleaned up, like how it should have been cleaned up, where, George Martin would have not allowed all that just shit. And they took off all the songs that should have been taken off. And I think it ended with Let It Be. And I'm like, exactly. How can you not end it with Let It Be? Like, what is this? I'm getting worked up.
See where George Martin was so necessary.
Yep. Yes. He's the fifth Beatle. Hands down. End of story. There's no argument. I can't believe there's actual people that have this argument, this discussion. It's not like Stern goes, people want to say George Martin is I go, Stern, you clearly haven't done your home. Like, and Stern's like not an idiot.
I know.
But I'm like, wait a minute, Stern, come on. Like, he goes, he's not the fifth Beatle. I'm like, oh, really? Who's the fifth Beatle? Who's the fifth Beatle?
Yeah.
I'm waiting.
Let's hear this.
I'm waiting. Billy Preston, who was there for like the sessions of the...
Yeah, he's on 4 songs at the most.
Right. No, I like Billy Preston. He's not the fifth Beatle. Who else?
Yeah.
Who else you got? Oh, Eric Clapton? Oh, yeah. He played one song. Okay, who else? Pete Best? You want to throw Pete Best at me?
Pete who?
Yeah, exactly. Did you ever hear the Pete Best solo album he did with...
I think I did.
There's a couple of them.
Got pushed out of my memory.
I don't think he's singing, but
Here's me on the drums.
yep.
Okay, right?
I like how they try to say like they got rid of him because he was like the best looking Beatle, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Okay,
Hey,
like that's
I'm not
weird.
gay, but
Yeah.
I would definitely pick some of the other ones over him.
No, but like it's cool because like when they had those pullouts of, did I tell you about how I found I was at Goodwill. This is like late last year. It was a Goodwill, and I saw the White Album. I found the White Album, and it had like all the inserts in it. It even had like all the individual pictures and shit. I was like, are you fucking? It's clearly in there because it doesn't have a big picture of the Beatles on it. So like they probably just like, yeah, here's some fucking piece of shit album, And I was like, oh my god, there's the fucking White Album. I was like, it was $1.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
It'd be like finding Sgt. Pepper with all the inserts.
Right. Yeah, except you don't find Sgt. Pepper because Sgt. Pepper has the famous picture of Sgt. Pepper on it. But I did
more likely to find two virgins.
Yes, exactly. I found two mint condition George Harrison albums at Goodwill. I was like, what the? Oh my god! And I was like, I did one of those things where I'm looking around. I'm like, what? I can't believe. What? Wait a minute. What? I'm like, oh, but people don't know George Harrison that well, especially his solo stuff. So, but I like it.
Yeah, I found McCartney, but it wasn't in the best shape.
Yeah,
it was. I mean, the record was good.
Or as my dad used to call it one, I love that album, Bullet Cherries. I'm like, that it's actually not called Bullet. It's good, great album.
Yeah,
Bullet Cherries.
I like that album.
Bullet Cherries.
Baby and Jacket.
Yeah. Yeah, the back of it. Yep. Baby and Jacket. Great album. So, yeah, Nowhere Man. It's a great song. And a good movie. Wasn't that the name of the movie? Nowhere Man?
Nowhere. There's a movie, Nowhere Man?
I think so. I think I saw that movie, and I think that's where I pulled the song. There's a did you listen to any of those Beatlesque songs that I put together? I was listening to the playlist, and there was some songs on there. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe they were on my list of like obscure songs. Oh, really?
I was gonna blindside you with, and I was like,
that's awesome.
I already got them.
Yeah, there's a song on there by, I can't remember his name is, like what it is, but usually Beatlesque is kind of like known. Like if you look up Beatlesque and you look up all the Beatlesque songs, they're pretty much like Paul McCartney songs. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're like the poppy kind of Paul McCartney, power pop, songs or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one on there that's like a very like a Lennon song. And you're like, whoa, it sounds like just like John Lennon. Like this is amazing. What's it called?
Which one was it? Do you remember?
It ends. I think it ends. I don't know if it's Nowhere Man. Oh man, what's the name of that song? Here, let me.
Scroll through the 300 songs you got.
Yeah, right.
I got a list going. I'm gonna send them to you at some point.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely listen to it. Where is the? Okay, wait, hold on here. Oh, did you ever hear the Tears for Fears? Everybody Loves a Happy Ending. That's a wild song too. I was like, whoa,
no.
Doesn't get more Beatlesque than that song. Holy crap!
See that one on the list yet?
It's wild.
Love that it starts out with the early Bee Gees though.
Yeah, totally.
I was like, fuck yeah. I remember when we found that record, the Bee Gees
Right?
Gold. I was like, whoa, they weren't disco?
Yeah, right. Maybe it's deleted. Maybe I had it written down. Hold on, let me check.
Oh
this.
man, yeah. I noticed that some of the songs were.
Oh, it makes me so angry. Yep, it was deleted. Okay, god damn it. Okay. So it's called Shelf Life. Everyone's like, oh, now it's remastered, so we're gonna take off the old one and put on the new one. And I'm like, oh, okay.
There's this band that disappeared from like Spotify. I had one of their songs in my playlist, and I was like trying to listen to it, and it's gone. So I typed the band name in. Band name's gone. I typed them into freaking YouTube, and they only have 2 songs on there, and it wasn't either of those songs, and it was a totally different sounding group. It was like,
wow.
they either person left and they hated them, so they wiped out all their old songs, or I don't know what the deal was. It's like weird, man.
Can you hear that?
Flowery graves.
Oh yeah.
Listen to this. Very Lennon.
Still hear them.
Oh yeah. When was this released?
Afraid of the cold spots.
I want to say the early 2000s.
Caught in the
2000.
Oh wow.
They
That's a
ended.
good one.
They ended one of the movies with the credits, and I'm like, it was a John Lennon documentary. And I was
really?
like, yeah, I was like, oh my god, this is awesome. And I was like,
is this an unreleased Lennon track or what? What's going on?
yeah, right. Wish I could play music on this podcast. It'd be amazing.
I know.
It'd be so
I was
fucking
listening
awesome.
to a Beatles podcast, and they were playing the songs just the little parts they would talk about on songs, like their favorite Beatles moments or whatever. They would play the snippets, but it was always like a bootleg or something.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, is that the workaround?
Yeah. The Beatles are notorious that they will take your shit down. Yeah, they'll flag your shit.
Do they need more money? I mean, what the hell, dude?
I don't know, man. Yeah, I guess I got to add this back to the. Here, I'll just do it now. Yeah, because like this one was.
I think what was interesting seeing this playlist is the range of songs you added it, and I'm like always like just listening for songs that sound like that specific mid Sgt. Pepper, Magical Mystery Tour era, and I'm like, I didn't even think about those other eras, or some of their early stuff, Jan and Dean. And
yeah. And just to let you know, I didn't come up with these on my own. Like I was like looking up Beatlesque songs for like weeks.
Yeah. Put a World Party song on there, and it reminded me of another one.
Oh, really?
The one by them.
That's awesome. Yeah, a lot of these have like more than one, and I was like, oh, I guess I just picked like one or two of these.
I like the New Kids on the Block too. I was listening to. I was like, yeah, dude, I see it.
I know. I was like, no. When I originally saw it, I was like, what? I go, what the what? And I listened. I was like,
gotta listen.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I guess it makes sense. Oh, 2006 it came out. So.
Do you got every single one of the Rutles songs on here?
Oh, that'd be awesome. I should put them on. The Rutles.
Dude, I finally saw the Rutles movie, and it was terrible. Like, how could it be terrible?
That's awesome.
It's Monty Python, Saturday Night Live, and they're working with the Beatles, and the music was amazing.
Right.
Like, I listened to the music over and over. I think I had a freaking record of it. Is the only way I could find it. And I don't even know where I got it. But I remember listening to it over and over on trips, going to track meets and invitationals in high school. And
That's awesome.
It was Beatles music, just funny.
The Rutles. Yeah, I think this is a perfect stopping point for this episode. But we'll certainly be back for some more music. Maybe some Beatle talk, something else. I don't know. But
thanks so much for inviting me on.
Absolutely.
I had a great time.
Same here, man. I always have a blast when you come on, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, bye.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in to the Josh and Friends podcast. If you have any questions or comments about today's show, feel free to leave a message in the comment section below. If you enjoy listening to the podcast, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and follow the show. And check out some of the video clips posted on YouTube and Facebook. I'm Josh, and thank you for being a friend.